So let me tell you a funny story about an artist who managed to absolutely mortify the entire Genshin community and basically become Voldemort, whose name invokes fear everywhere it's heard. But in order to understand this story, we have to go back in 2021. At that time, Genshin was becoming more and more popular, and of course, with every popular IP, there are doujins. And there are some doujins that are very infamous in the Genshin community. For example, Barbara's curse removal, or that one I cannot remember how it's called, Yoimiya is delicious or something, where a bunch of hilichurls eat Yoimiya. But there is one doujin that managed to create such a visceral shock, disgust and fear, and it's still feared to this very day. So let's talk about it. On Twitter, there is this very particular artist whose name I am really struggling to pronounce. So I will call them Nyancha, which is probably not how you pronounce it, but come on, give me some slack. So Nyancha is incredibly popular artist. They have this incredible unique style that makes every single character they draw just pop off. But one thing that they are incredibly good at is drawing faces and expressions, especially in their lewd art. And because Genshin was such a popular IP, of course Nyancha wanted to create some art for it. So they made a couple of comics. Some of them featured Kuching and Ether, and it was very wholesome. This is because that ship was very popular back in the day, and people demanded more, so Nyancha obliged and made more spicy art. And people loved it, it was amazing. But then they wanted more, and Nyancha was more like Subarashi, and made this. Now, I am pretty sure that most of you had just an instant PTSD after witnessing this. And it's so funny how this comic just managed to stay at the back of every player's mind and absolutely mindfuck them to this very day. If you don't believe me, let me show you. As you can see, I am now on the official Genshin Impact subreddit, and I am going to search for one specific word. Horn. Nothing else. And as you can see, we have some normal things. For example, we have this video where Tartaglia is fighting some kind of boss, which I never seen before, because I don't play the game. And as you can see, it's pretty normal. But just go into the comments and you are going to see. Yep, the comment section in this post just ain't a chief. And look at this one. I was going to comment how much more difficult it was to do it with Ganyu. Now I live in fear. And look at this one. This whole comment section is going on about child ex-Ganyu porn, and I am very thankful I don't have any idea about what it is. For your mental health, keep it this way. And this is absolutely hilarious, but this is not just this post. Look at this innocent one. There is nothing wrong with it. It's just some dude who photoshopped Ganyu without horns. Then you go into the comment section and you just see this. It looks good, but it gives me some sort of PTSD. If you don't know why, I am happy for you. I mean, you can just feel the trauma. And this is not just on Reddit, on YouTube, on Twitter, everywhere where there is Ganyu, and every time somebody mentions her horns, everybody just gets reminded of their trauma. And it doesn't help that Nyancha has such a massive following, a cult following even. And this comic spread like a wildfire, and it actually made real life consequences. I mean, it's absolutely hilarious. Just go to any Twitter thread, YouTube video, or any place where there is a community and just say that you ship child and Ganyu. And then you are going to be absolutely shit on by the entire community. But why did this comic manage to terrify the players so much, instead of something like Yoimiya is Delicious, which in my mind is more grotesque? Well, in order to explain, we have to understand how horror manga works. Wait, give me a minute. I can explain. This makes sense. When it comes to horror manga, you're very limited to amount of things you can do. Unlike media like video games or movies, you don't have access to music, to sound, to jump scares. So how do you create fear? Easy, by creating anticipation throughout your entire story. And Nyantacha managed to do it in 4 pages. You need to give some sort of hook to the reader so they continue reading. So first, let's examine this first page. In this first page, everything seems pretty normal. We have Ganyu and Child, and the plot is about overworked Ganyu who managed to get seduced by Tartaglia, who is complimenting her horns and how beautiful they are. And this is the first red flag. But then when you turn the page, you see this. Tartaglia's face over here is absolutely terrifying. It builds such a good anticipation about what is next going to happen. Then you click on the next page and you can see Ganyu absolutely struggling as Tartaglia breaks one of her horns, which are very special to her. And this has been shown in the official media and in the game as well. How these horns are very special to her and how much sensitive they are. But there is one element that every great single horror manga has, and that is the art of turning the page. Letting your viewer consciously click on the next page. Letting them experience the jump scare on their own terms, making it much more personal. And we can see this in great works such as works of Junji Ito, who has managed to become one of the greatest mangakas when it comes to horror. And of course, every single person who has read this comic to this part had to click on the next page. They had to see what is going to happen. And when they did, they were met with this. I'm going to give you a few seconds to just take it all in. This image is absolutely haunting. First, you're hit with this absolutely gut-punching reaction of absolute disgust, and your eyes immediately focus on Ganyu's face. And what is so horrifying about it is how her face shows absolute pure delight and joy. The elements like mind break, the blood oozing from her face, the violent act of sexual gratification made by two characters who have absolutely different personalities and fan bases just clash together to create this absolute masterpiece of horror storytelling. And look at that face. I told you Nyantacha is incredible when it comes to drawing faces and how expressive they are. And when you examine this page, there is 2 types of horror here. First type is physical, that you are going to immediately feel when you see this page. And then there's second type of horror that comes from actually reading the story of this comic, which basically says that Ganyu is now broken and helpless, and how this act was her fall from grace. And this forbidden pleasure is the thing that she will seek now from Child. And the last page just concludes it all. And let me tell you, when this came out, oh my god, I cannot explain how much people were angry. And the funny thing is, when it comes to Tartaglia or Child, There are some personality traits that are immediately associated with him. For example, great big brother who protects his siblings, a powerful warrior who wants to fight stronger and stronger opponents, and somebody who wants to prove himself. And he is basically our rival in the game, our friendly rival. But this comic absolutely destroyed his image in the eyes of the community. He became, how do I say this word without getting punished by YouTube? Graper. Yes, grapes. Every Tartaglia player, which was also basically me at the time, was immediately called the grapist of the community. And you know, Genshin Impact managed to grab such a huge amount of tourists and normies who had no idea what doujins are, or were at least a little bit familiar with Rule 34. So this comic turned them into violent haters who were ready to bash on anybody who dared to defile their waifu. And Ganyu was incredibly popular at the time. She was probably the first or the second most popular character at the time. And people hated Tartaglia because he already had few reruns. So he was seen as a rerun Archon, somebody who was stalling you from you getting your waifus. It had all these elements that just made it work. But you know, Genshin community is incredibly reasonable. So how do you react to this comic and let your frustration in a healthy way? Well, it's actually pretty easy. You go and harass the English voice actor. And no, I am not kidding. They called the official voice actor of Tartaglia a grapist. A man who defiled their precious Ganyu. I am not shitting you. This actually happened. And I still cannot believe the level of stupidity in this fucking community. Like, why harass the voice actor? That just doesn't make sense. And Nyantacha became also an instant enemy number one to the entire community. And you know Nyantacha, they like to troll, and troll they did. So they created more Ganyu X Tartaglia art. But that was not all. They also more trends that satirize some other Genshin characters. For example, we have the team of Eula and Ember, the Hilichurl Masters. And of course, Noel, the Hilichurl Slayer. And even though these comics were not as impactful as the Ganyu one, every old player knows about them. And it's so hilariously funny just how this comic managed to create a headcanon of an evil Tartaglia who enjoys grapes in his spare time. And you know how people are with their headcanons. Just look at Robin is a lesbian situation. I mean, people are just insane, man. There were so many hate campaigns, threats on violence on Tartaglia players, threats on the voice actor, threats on Nyantacha themselves. And people get genuinely annoyed and angry every time you mention some of their works, even to this very day. And Warframe community also decided to make fun of this situation by turning Tartaglia into a Kuva farmer, because Ganyu's horns look like Kuva blood, which you basically need to roll Rivens in Warframe. This whole situation is just a shit show. So thank you, Nyantacha, for creating this absolute masterpiece and piecing every single waifu player back in the day. Because humor and trolling is at its best when somebody gets angry. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe so I can escape from this mental asylum. And be careful, you never know when Tartaglia might show up.